Hello everybody and welcome back to Baron's Den as we take a look at another faction now and what sort of starting rosters we can build. In this series of videos we are looking at each team in the new Season 3 of Blood Bowl and looking at what the starting rosters could be. What could they do out of the box if you just buy the box, and what are the options there. Then we look at a few more options that you could run in the league if you've got the extra models. And then finally we look at a few tournament rosters. And Lizardmen, I've pushed up the order because I know one of the concerns from Lizardmen players has been the increase in costs, meaning that you are struggling to fit things into a team. So I thought that would be interesting to investigate. So let's get a move on. So first of all, I've got roster A here, and this is an out-of-the-box roster because it contains all but one of the pieces that you do get when you buy a Lizardmen team from GW. And what you're getting for that is you can have 4 skink linemen for 60,000, which gives you a cost of 240,000. You get 1 chameleon skink, one of the 2 chameleon skinks for 70, and all 6 Saurus blockers, which comes to 540,000, and then 2 rerolls. So the only thing you're missing from there is a chameleon skink, but it does mean you're only running 2 rerolls. So compared with before, I'm not sure if you could have got in a third reroll. Potentially, if you weren't playing the team out the box, and you could swap certain positions for skink lineman, for example. But no, I think that is pretty much all you can do if you want to run a bit of everything and still have 2 rerolls. But as before, I've got a couple of other options here. So then we've got roster B. That is if you want to run all 12 players from the box. Obviously, that's an extra 70k because of the extra chameleon skink, which means you lose one of your rerolls. So again, it comes out at 990, very similar to the last one, but you're running 1 less reroll, but you've got 1 extra chameleon skink, and of course you've got a bench. I wouldn't advise this because I think rerolls are going to be very important for the Lizardman team because of the lack of ball handling and blocking skills to begin with. Yes, you've got Juggernaut now on the blockers, but that's only going to work on the blitz, isn't it? So it's going to be plenty of times when the Saurus blockers are blocking outside of a blitz and they're still vulnerable to those both downs. So I would be cautious about going into this roster with only just 1 reroll. Then we've got roster C. So this time I've thought about, well, what could we do if we wanted to run 2 rerolls and you wanted both chameleon skinks, and this time you've dropped a Saurus blocker. I don't see anyone running this one. People don't like to drop the Saurus, but this one just gives you a little bit more mobility, and it gives you a little bit of cash to save towards something else. But on the whole, again, wouldn't recommend this variant either. So those were the out-of-the-box rosters. There's not really a lot you can do. You're kind of limited by the fact that you can't swap out some of those positions for skink linemen. But if you could, and you had extra models, what sort of things could you look to do? So this is also 1 million build. This is if you thought, you know what, I want to start with 3 rerolls, and I'm happy to pay in the future to get the extra blockers and maybe even the Krox later on. So this one, you've got 6 skink linemen, 1 chameleon skink, 4 Saurus blockers, which is on the weak side, but you are able to get them 3 rerolls. I would, again, be cautious about this because now you've got some of the consistency with the rerolls, but you're very light on Saurus. You're missing 2 Saurus and a Krox, so that's 3 players with strength 4 and above that you're missing from this list. So, and of course you'd need extra skink linemen to run this outside of the box. So again, I wouldn't be a fan of this one, but it is an option. You've then got roster B. Okay, now this is if you've decided, I've bought the Krox big guy model, I want to run him from the start. So in order to do that, you've pretty much got to run the roster that I spoke about earlier. I think, was it roster A? But you're upgrading a Saurus blocker to a Krox, but to pay for that, you're dropping a reroll. And again, I just think this one is going to be too inconsistent and lacking in those rerolls. It'll be good to have the Krox from the start, and it'll help him to build up star player points in your league if you've got him straight out the gate. But he is unreliable still with Bonehead and with Loner, so I don't think I would do this. But again, if you felt like you really wanted to run the Krox, I think this is pretty much the only way you're getting him in, unless you drop a lot of Saurus blockers. Because the trouble with the Lizardmen team is every time you drop a Saurus blocker, you're going to have to replace it with a skink lineman. You're only making 30k. So let's say we dropped a Saurus blocker for a skink lineman to try and save for a secondary roll. That would still not give you enough. You'd have to drop 2. You'd have to go down to 3 Saurus blockers. I suppose you could get rid of the chameleon skink for a skink and a Saurus blocker for a skink. So that's something you could do. So that would be 6 skinks, 4 Saurus, 1 Kroxagore, and 2 rerolls, I think, is potentially possible. And then we've got this one, which is this is the full strength build. So 6 blockers, 1 Kroxagore, and then just the 4 skink variants. Again, 1 reroll, it's risky, and also you're risking the fact that you've only got 4 of the ball handling players that could just get wiped out early in game. So I think this one would be a risk as well. But again, if you wanted full strength, all 7 big hitters, then you can be done for 1 million. And finally, the last one I've got on, this one's more of a bit of fun. This is the skink roster. So if you were going to run a purely stunty style team with just skinks and obviously the big guy, this is what you can run. Now you can see that the problem they've got is, even though they're stunties, they're really expensive, and I was shocked to think you can actually only afford 11 players and 3 rerolls. I mean, there are little variations. You could get rid of both chameleons and go for just skinks, which would save you another 20k. But again, it's not enough really to do anything else with. So yeah, if you want to go for the all skink team, it's pretty tricky. Okay, so on to tournament rosters now. I have never taken Lizardmen to a tournament, so apologies if people look at this and think there's no way you should be doing that, Baron. That's ridiculous. This is just how I'd do it in my own head if I was planning. So the other problem you've got is that Lizardmen are going to be tier 1 in most tournaments, including the Games Workshop one. So you might get less skills and you might get less cash. So at first I'm going with that you've got 6 skill points. And I'm going with that you've either got 1,150,000 or just 1.1. Okay, so this is what I would be looking to take if I've got 1,150,000 to spend. I'd want the Kroxagore, and I'd want all 6 Saurus. I'd be putting guard and block on these, just to have a reliable blitzer, and then guard to help spread the strength and to make it very hard for any bash team to get me. I've put wrestle/tackle here because I don't know what's better, because a player without block but with tackle is still a risk. Particularly if you're taking on a blodger. So again, that depends on, I think, people with more experience, but also what you're likely to face. Going into this next edition, I think you're going to need tackle, because there's going to be a lot of Amazon players, I get the feeling. So you might want to take tackle with you, but you might decide actually that it's not as beneficial. You could always just go block instead of either of those. Of course, the elite skill tax I've tried to be aware of, and as you can see, I've only got 4 of those elite skills just in case that is a rule in the tournament that you're running. And then I've put block on a skink as a secondary because that gives you that blodging player who can carry the ball and is more difficult to knock down. And you can still afford 3 rerolls, and you've got that big guy as well. So I quite like the balance of that one. There is a variant if you've got no secondary skills, because some tournaments would say just get 6 primaries. They might be mean and give you 5 primaries. So in this one, I've just taken block off the skink lineman. I don't think agility skills does much for them. So I've got 1 tackle, 1 wrestle. And it means I'm not going above the 4 elite skills as well. That obviously also, because it's the same players, comes out the same cost. So I call this a tier 1 variant. If you're in a 1.1 build, what have I had to lose? So I've lost a reroll basically. I have got a bit of cash left over. You could upgrade a skink lineman to a chameleon skink if you'd consider that an upgrade. You might not. Or you could spend it on other small inducements. So that's the tier 1 variant. Then obviously you don't have to play a Krox, do you? So if you want to try and save a bit of that money that way, you can go back up to 3 rerolls. You get all 6 Saurus, and you get 5 of the skink type players. So that's quite a balanced one. And also with your 6 skills, you can still put all your skills on your Saurus blocker. I know some people just go block on all of the Saurus, but now they've got Juggernaut and the fact that you might see the elite skills come in, you might not be able to throw as much block down. So yeah, that's the no Krox build. And then I thought I'd look at a few star players to kind of make the point that Lizardmen are very expensive now. So this is if you wanted to run. I thought we'd do Dribble and Drool first, as they are two brilliant star players. In order to accommodate this, there's no Kroxagore. There's only one reroll. You do get your 6 blockers, and then I've not even been able to afford a... Oh no, you could upgrade one of these to a Chameleon Skink if you wanted to. If you're at 1,150,000. If you're not at that level, and it was only a 1.1 build, you'd have to lose the reroll. Now this is also on the basis that star players have to be included after you've drafted 11 players. That was definitely a rule in the past. I've been to a few tournaments where star players were taken, and the first one I went to, I took Glart in a Skaven build, and I was able to include him as one of the 11. So that's why I was able to afford that with a reasonably competitive Skaven team. But I know that after that, all the tournaments I went to with star player access, you had to draft your 11 players first, and then your star player was your 12th player. So when I took Ivan with my undead, I had to have 11 players drafted, which is why I had to basically run Ivan instead of one of my whites, and have extra zombies. So, again, if that isn't the problem, you can save 60,000, for example, by deleting a skink lineman and putting these two in their place. But like I said, that would depend on the rules of your tournament. And I'm going with my previous experience of tournaments. So, yeah, this is if you want Dribble and Drool, and you just have to either lose the reroll or downgrade quite a few Saurus to skinks in order to afford them. Anky Panky, now he is cheaper by 40k, so you do get a reroll, and you can get it in at 1.1, and it's much the same. You've got 5 skinks and 6 Saurus, so that's not bad. And of course, obviously, with the star players costing 2 star player points, you're not getting much in the way of skills to put on your players. That's if you wanted Anky Panky. And finally, if you wanted to go all out and go Glottal Stop, then you are losing a Saurus blocker. So, as you can see, you only get 5 now. You have to run 6 skinks. And that is another 1.15 build. If you want a 1.1, you'd have to lose the reroll again, or do some shenanigans with dropping Saurus down to skinks. So I think in any of those cases, the only one I'd possibly consider is the Anky Panky one, because I think otherwise they're just too expensive. Now, I'm not going to go through every star player like I did with perhaps the Orcs, because Estelle Leverneau, I think, is 190, so you could do something similar to this one. Boa Constrictor's 180, so again, you could do something similar to this roster. And Carla Von Kill, I think, is closer in cost to Dribble and Drool, so you'll be able to do something similar to those. So I think there's rosters there that you can apply to other star players as well. So yeah, I think that's where we land with Lizardmen. I think, having done this exercise of trying to build some rosters, I can see the Lizardmen players' point that whilst they may not have had the same amount of nerfs as other teams, their roster building is more complicated now that their players have gone up even that little bit, particularly when it comes to that starting 1 million build. You are going to have to give up something in order to be legal for the start of that league. But I know that in League they'll brew it well. You'll start getting the cash, and eventually you'll be able to get all the extra bits and bobs. It's just that you've got to watch your team value doesn't spike, especially with the elite skills costing 10k more. That's something that players are going to have to be aware of. Anyway, that's it for me with the tournament rosters. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And we'll see which team we'll do for the next one. Thank you very much. Bye for now.